I've been tested, and I believe our country's best days are ahead of us if we take on the responsibility of leadership. The American people are waiting for us to step up, protect our values, our principles, and our country. Together, we can do something great for America. I welcome that challenge. But my friends, I need your help, because right now, in this final weekend, another issue is before us, that of electability. I believe I'm the only candidate in the race who can bring our party to victory in the fall. First, because of the firmness of my principles and the trust that engenders. Secondly, because of the detailed program I've put before the people. Third, because I've been tried and tested, and I'm a known quantity in public life. But most of all, I think I know how to talk to the American people about the opposition and the danger their victory would pose to the principles we hold dear. You know, in the last debate, when I was asked the biggest problem with American education, I had a ready answer: the NEA, by which I meant the National Education Association, that highly politicized Washington-based union that is a hindrance to students as well as to teachers it claims to represent. But you know, the NEA is not the only problem. Just like its education policy, the Democratic Party's foreign policy is heavily influenced by another left-of-center pressure group, MoveOn.org, which implied that our leading general in Iraq betrayed us. It tells our men and women in uniform that the war they're fighting is lost, and then tries to cut off funds for our troops in the field. And its social policy is heavily determined by the radically secular ACLU, which tries to take God out of the public square and leaps to the legal defense of our nation's enemies. You know, when I'm asked which of the current group of Democratic candidates I prefer to run against, I always say it really doesn't matter. Because these days, all those candidates, all the Democratic leaders, are one and the same. They're all NEA, MoveOn.org, ACLU, Michael Moore Democrats. They've allowed these radicals to take control of their party and dictate their course. So this election is important, not just to enact our conservative principles. This election is important to salvage the once great political party from the grip of extremism and shake it back to its senses. It's time to give not just Republicans, but independents and, yes, good Democrats a chance to call a halt to the leftward lurch of the once proud party of working people. So, in seeking the nomination of my own party, I want to say something a little unusual. I'm asking my fellow Republicans to vote for me not only for what I have to say to them, but for what I have to say to the members of the other party, the millions of Democrats who haven't left the Democratic Party so much as their party's national leadership has left them. In this campaign, I'll be seeking the support of millions of Democrats who no longer believe that they can trust their own party leadership on the issue of national security. I'll be seeking the support of millions of Democrats with young families who are beginning to see the economic burdens they may face because of their party's leadership's taste for high taxes and politically motivated refusal to fix Social Security and remove the threat of the shortfall in federal benefit plans that could be a catastrophe for younger taxpayers. And finally, I'll be seeking the support of Democrats who are weary of spin politics and the permanent campaign and endless attempts to control the media dynamic, who think policy stances ought to be judged on a higher criteria than what works better in a soundbite or fits this week's campaign message guidance. So I'll be asking good Democrats as well as independents to give us another chance to see if a Republican president and Congress that's dedicated to conservative principles can move forward with an agenda that goes beyond narrow partisanship and political expediency and actually deals with the long-term foreign and domestic crises we face. I know we can do better than a 14% approval rating that the current Congress had, and I know we've learned our lessons from last year's election. We're the party of smaller, smarter government, lower taxes, and less Washington spending. And the only way we win is if we understand that, remain true to it, and refuse to yield to those who would have us abandon it. All of this, then, and more, that's why I'm running for president. I believe that, yes, we can deal with the dangers and threats before our nation and the world, and we can begin now by remembering who we are, where we came from, and what we've done before as a people. This isn't the first time our nation has been in grave danger, even in our own lifetime. Not long ago, ours was an east-west world where the democracies were beleaguered and small in number. Now, so much that was once unimaginable is happening before our eyes. We see a world where representative government is flourishing, a world where the global economic boom is taking millions out of poverty every year, a world where there's even talk of a permanent end to poverty. Well, we got to this place because of leaders who saw something more than political expediency. Leaders like Ronald Reagan who would use his time in office wisely, precisely because he thought politics had higher uses than just the pursuit of power. He spoke often of the abuses of government power that our founding fathers feared and warned against. You know, I've always thought that one of the most impressive things about one of those founders, George Washington, was his willingness to walk away from power. Having spent 8 impossibly difficult years in a military struggle against the greatest military power on earth, he was filled with an awe and wonder, not at the work of mere mortals, but at the workings and power of providence. An awe and wonder that was never to leave him. To his dying day, he was to remind Americans that the one condition of a prosperous and free people was a belief in a will higher than our own, a trust in providence. Lincoln had it too, the conviction that no free people, and certainly no president, can long endure without a belief in a wisdom far exceeding any human understanding. I know the people of Iowa think that way. I recognize it when I see them. That's one of the great advantages that comes from growing up in another part of the heartland, Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. On Sunday morning, my hometown was a pretty busy place. People on their way to hear the good news that the future is in better hands than our own. So thanks to what I learned in those early days, I've always known no matter how much we wanted otherwise, we humans aren't in charge. Life is sometimes harsh, though, in teaching us that truth. And all this was much on my mind last summer when I decided to run for the presidency, especially as I looked around my home at another generation, a 3-year-old and a 5-month-old, and thought, as have so many of you over the past few years, about the safe future I had and how much I wanted to make that future a certainty for my children and yours. So for this reason and all the others I mentioned, I'm hoping that you support me in the days ahead. I'm hoping, too, that you'll join me in something that comes pretty easily here in the heartland, a prayer of thanks for the great things that have happened in our time, and a prayer of hope, too. Hope that when the history of our own age is written, it'll be said of us what was said of those before us, that we were unswerving in our dedication to the cause of human freedom and dignity, and that we kept our trust in the will of Him who made us and who enjoins us to now go forth and make a newer world. Thank you all. May God bless you, and may God bless America.